Hello friends, welcome to Watch Complications. I'm Brian. I have a treat for you today. It's a review of the Hamtun Nanok, and I can't wait to talk to you more about that. I have so many good things planned and coming. It just takes a lot of time to make these videos and whatnot, but I got a Grand Seiko coming. I have a Vario coming. There's good reviews coming up. So keep on watching the channel, ring the bell so you make sure you get the updates. But today, it's the Hamtun Nanok. First, let's give a little bit of background. This is a Kickstarter watch. Okay, it's the only Hamtun that I've backed on Kickstarter. There have been 4. Now, the fellow that runs the company, started it, runs it, his name is Ross, and he started with the H1, which was a great success. The Neon barely made it past the goalpost in terms of funding, but got funded. This Nanok was the 3rd one, and it more than doubled the goal, but it still only had about 130 backers. I guess dive watches are really in because his 4th Kickstarter, the H2, which built on top of the initial H1, this one's dubbed the Kraken, went through the roof, over 400,000 pounds, over 1,300 backers. It's a big success. I know there are a lot of you out there waiting for the H2 Kraken. There are a lot of dial similarities and things like that, of course, being from the same company, same thinker and designer for making these watches, but this will give you maybe some insight into what might be coming, both in terms of pros and cons. The tagline for this one was a watch that lasts a lifetime. That's because it has this special steel hardening coating that is sprayed on the outside of the bracelet in the case. Let's talk a couple of things though. I want to start with the shipping. One of the things I really liked about this was that the watch was shipped in a travel watch roll as opposed to a useless box that's going to collect dust in the basement. So it's stamped with the mark, and you'll see all these different pictures of me unboxing it or unrolling it, as is customary on my blog post that will accompany the video. So a nice watch roll, 2 pouches. This is regular old leather, black. A little bit rougher on the inside than the outside. I think that's just because of the surface treatment, but nice way to send a watch. I prefer this because now I actually have a useful watch roll to take things out and about when I want to travel a little bit. Live, travel, explore. I wish more companies did this so you had more options when it came to traveling and taking watches with you. A slew of watch rolls would be much better while you're traveling. Okay, so let me give you an initial look at this before we get to all of the different views and up close stuff. This is the Hamtun Nanok, and I don't know if it's supposed to be pronounced Nanok or Nanook, but I'm saying Nanok. I got both the bracelet and the black strap. This is the hardened case and bracelet. It was an add-on with the Kickstarter, but I did go for it, one, because I wanted to see how it actually does over time. The bracelet, the strap's comfortable too, but I've had it on the bracelet in a couple of days I've been wearing it because it is quite comfortable, even though the clasp is a little bit bulky, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I do like the look on it. It's got polished sides and then a brushed center with the logo. So it's a little bit bulky, but I kind of like how it looks. I am going to give you all the pros and the cons of this watch. There are both pros and cons. The pros are more from on the wrist to the naked eye sort of look and use of the watch. The cons are mostly at the macro level. The main reason I backed this watch is because, at least for my collection, I wanted something that had the full day. In terms of the complication, this has a Soletta SW240 in it, so it's a movement you don't see too often. You don't see the full day too often. This has the full day at 12 and the date at 6, which gives the dial a nice balanced look top to bottom. All right, so let's move on to a little bit of a closer look, and I'll give you all the specs. Okay, so let's take an initial look at this offering from Hamtun Watches, again based in the UK. This is the Nanok, and overall has a wonderful look about it. You might notice that I have the crown unscrewed. There's a reason why. I'll show you that in a few seconds. But first I want to talk pros, things I really like about this watch, then I'll get into a few of the cons. But first, the most obvious thing is that it's got a unique look about it, not just because of the blue and black. It's kind of like an aqua blue printing, around the hour markers, and then the text and the lume dot on the seconds hand, but it's a full day and the date complication, which is something you don't see as much. Obviously, there are some places where you would see this. Probably the one most people would think about initially would be, the Rolex references that have the full day at 12 o'clock. But I like the combo of having the day at 12 and the date at 6. It gives a nice balanced look to the dial. Another thing is that the size is in the sweet spot. It is 40 millimeter, which again will look good on most people of sort of average wrist sizes. Let me get my calipers here. We'll take a quick look at the sizes. I like verifying it for you. See, this is between 39 and 40. It's like 39.2 on there. So it's 40 millimeter diameter. The strap and bracelet is 20 millimeter. See there, 20 millimeter. The lug to lug is about 46 if I recall. I won't show you that one. And then the thickness is just over 11.3, 11.36, somewhere around there. So that's the sizes. So 40 millimeter diameter, 11 millimeter height is really a good sweet spot for a lot of people. I'll also mention that this is about 143 grams on the bracelet. Of course, it'd be a lot lighter on the strap, but in terms of weight, it's not too heavy. Only about 143, 144 grams on the wrist. It is very comfortable on the wrist. The clasp has nice action to it, smooth in terms of taking it off, putting it on. This watch is extremely comfortable. I was a little bit worried about how comfortable it might be, but it's very comfortable, hugs the wrist well. The bracelet is huge, by the way. I had to take 5 links out of this. I have about a 7.5 inch wrist, about 19 centimeters, and I took out 5 links. 3 on this side, 2 on this side, and wears extremely well, maintains a slim profile. I like the design of the last link here. Fitted very nicely, very comfortable, curves nicely with the lugs. And so this thing maintains a nice slim profile. Again, 11 millimeter height, just over, 40 millimeter diameter. Looks great on the wrist and just extremely comfortable to wear. So that's a big pro. I'll give you a look here of the clasp. Again, there's that mix of polishing and brushing. The brushing is extremely well done. I'll give you a close look at that in the macro view as well. If there is one con about the bracelet, it's just the bulkiness of the clasp. It is quite thick, and it's basically the same thickness, a little bit thicker than the case. And it's got a micro extension on here, so that's nice. You know, quickly adjust for changes in the day. It gets a little more humid, or you're going between different temperatures. That's nice. And like I said, the action on that and the opening and the release and closing is nice, but it is extra bulky. Still feels, nice and comfortable, and overall a slim watch on the wrist, but that does have some girth to it. And so I'm glad it has the hardening, because that's probably going to take a lot of bumping and hitting against surfaces just because of the size of that. Both the bracelet and the strap are comfortable. Okay, so let's take this off. Now, to the eye, everything looks crisp and well done. I'm visually satisfied with it. We're going to take a macro view in which I'll point out some of the cons up close, but the extra hardening will be interesting to see how that wears over time. One of the interesting things that I thought was a really nice touch, as you can see here on the back, it says Hamtun Watches, Nanok, is around the information, automatic 316L, sapphire, kind of normal things you would see on a case back, is they put in these little icons before each one. That's sort of a visual of that particular feature. So here's a little gear, automatic. Here, this is speaking to the case and the bracelet, little watch icon, 316L stainless steel. Then there's a diamond, sapphire, talking about the crystal. And then the one I like the most, this one's kind of interesting. It's a little submarine, it's a little boat right there. And I'll show you these again up close on the macro view, 10 atmospheres. So it's got a good depth rating, but I like those little icons on the back. It's a nice touch. And so the case back, simple, but well done. So with regard to the crown, I do like the crown guard, and the crown is easy to engage with, to unscrew it
setting the time. The way it works is once you've unscrewed it, you can just, wind. The action is very smooth on this Soletta movement, which is the SW240, again, which has the full day complication. Pull out to the first position. Moving forward, we'll rotate the date. Moving in the reverse, we'll rotate the day. And then you pull out to second position and you've got the time setting. The one con about the crown, everything else with the crown I like. I like the guard, I like the size of it, interacting with it, time setting, all of that's fine. But what I've found particularly difficult, say difficult is the right word, but at least takes some extra effort, is reattaching the crown, screwing it back in. It's hard to get the threads to engage on the inside of the crown with the tube, and so this is particularly hard, and you'll hear it winding through the whole process. Now I have other watches where it winds while you screw the crown back in sometimes, but it's particularly difficult and hard to screw back in and to get it right. So you might find that a little bit of an issue. If you have one of these, I don't know what it's like on the other Hamtun watches, but it's an issue I noticed on this one. So during the Kickstarter, one of the add-ons you could get was some extra hardening, a coating that goes on the bracelet and the case, and I did get that. I did pick up that option. It's a good thing because I want to, one, see how it wears over time, but during packing or shipping, you will notice that right here underneath this 45, there's a dent, there's a scratch. This happened in shipping. I could see it on the protective tape, right, that goes over the back of a case back usually. But at some point during shipping, the bracelet was kind of laying like this, but it got hit and the corner of the bracelet, took a nice knock at the case back. And so there's a little bit of a scratch or dent there. Zoom in here a little bit so you can see it better. And I'll show you again this a little bit closer up in the macro view. Wonder what it would look like without the hardening. Took a pretty good hit. So that's the first character building moment for this watch, I would assume. So that did happen during packing or shipping, but I expect it will pick up a few more over time. As I mentioned, the bracelet is quite large, which is nice because it's better to have more links than not enough, and it will accommodate about anybody's wrist. They were easy to take off. That's, again, a pro. It has screw-in pins for the links, which, again, are easy to work with, unlike, perhaps like a collar or pin setup. But one thing, just make sure you use the right size screwdriver and be patient, take your time so that you don't, one, either damage the head of the screw or, scratch the links, so on and so forth. So they are threaded at this end. Easy to take off, quick to resize the bracelet. Again, my wrist is about 7.5 inches, about 19 centimeters, and I had to remove 5 of the links. So we currently have 5 spare links for this. So that is our initial look at this particularly interesting and unique looking watch from Hamtun. Let's take an up-close look with the macro lens on. Again, I'll mention a few of the pros about it. I will also discuss some of the cons. All right, so let's start taking our up-close look at the Nanok. And I want to start with one of the pros, and that's the case and the bracelet in terms of the brushing. You can see that the links are fully brushed. There are some parts of the clasp that are polished, the edges. See, there's the logo. It's got sort of a sandblasted back on it. Again, these edges are polished, but then the rest of the bracelet is brushed the whole way around. To get a close look at the crown. See the logo there. See around the bezel here. It's also nicely brushed. It's brushed, but it's got sort of moments where it makes you think it's polished almost, which is a nice look. The bracelet very tightly fitted here, which gives it a really good seamless look. Look at the reverse here. Let me open this up a little bit wider. By the way, the action on the clasp is really smooth, nice in terms of opening and closing. Again, even though, it's a little bit thicker than I would like for a clasp. So here's the back. Again, combination of sort of brushed surfaces and sandblasted. I want to show you these like little icons up close, which I think is one of the pros. A nice touch. So we'll start here at the top with the information. You can see it says, Hamtun Watches, Nanok. And then for each of these little bits of information about the watch, there's a little icon. So you can see that one's, a little gear, automatic. There's a little picture of a watch talking about the case and bracelet steel. It's 316L stainless steel. Got a little diamond for the word sapphire. Go to the other side here. Look, there's a little boat. 10 atmospheres. So I like these little icons. I mean, that's just really a nice little touch. I don't recall seeing that sort of thing before. Usually it's just dots or something like that. You can see this is number 45. I think that's what my backer number was. I thought it was 43, but you can see that there's this one little scratch or dent right there, and that's one of the little things I mentioned in my cons, was that during the shipping or packing, it took a hit. I could see it on the protective tape that goes on the back of these. Not the end of the world. I expect this will get a few more, although this has the extra hardening, so we'll see how it holds up over time. But it had to get hit pretty hard, I think, to put that little dent in it. Let's look at the dial now, because I love the dial. I really do. I think it's wonderfully done in terms of the sort of to the eye look when it's on the wrist. The black and blue combination with the white hands is really great. But there are some issues when you get to the macro scale. I've been wearing it around. I love it on my wrist, but there are some finer points that I think are at least worth noting. First, I want to talk about the printing, which is okay, but there's certainly room for improvement there. So if you look at the blue markers, we'll start there. You can see it's pretty fuzzy, not too crisp around the edges. You can see that a couple of these minute markers have some imperfections to them. Some of them are better than others. You can see again, it's not extremely crisp around the edges of these squares, these blue squares. You go to some of them, and they're a little bit better, particularly the white markers. So that's one thing, is that the printing could be a little bit more crisp, and that holds true sort of through other parts of it. Now, this is okay here, Nanok, automatic, the depth rating. Yeah, it's okay, but it could be crisper. One of the other things, and this is one of the things I'm curious about because I'm working on this myself, my own custom watches, is this day cutout. Notice this corner's nice and clean. This one is as well. This one is as well. But the one over here in the top left is a little bit not cut square. Not a huge deal, but just one thing I noticed when I was looking at it up close. I do like the hands. These are painted black at center. And again, in terms of the level of detail, you can see that they're not extremely crisp on the edges. So in terms of the dial making, if there's one major improvement, it's really trying to get more crisp on the painting and the printing. See that a little bit better there. Get that second hand moving a little bit and out of the way. So you can see a few splotches there. Markers for the loom are pretty good. Nice and clean lines there. Nicely polished. So those are pretty good. I didn't see any really weird imperfections or anything with those. So those are nice. One other thing, notice this spot right here. That's on the inside of the case, so that little white speck of dust or something, that's on the inside of the case. I've looked up close under my loupe. I've obviously I first tried to clean. This one you can sort of notice with the eye, but not too bad. So there are a few occurrences of that on the dial where it could have been a little bit cleaner, more caution, I guess, in terms of the casing to prevent sort of little things like that. I guess I was expecting a little bit more of a glossy black. It's a little bit more textured and matte than I thought. Now, it does look glossier from a distance, like when it's on your wrist, but up close, it takes on much more of a matte finish. Notice next to the hour marker at 1 here, if I can get this in the right light, there it is. There's either a scratch on the dial or some adhesive. I don't know if these were soldered on or applied with an adhesive, but there is a scratch or something on the dial right there. It's hard to see, again, to the naked eye and in most light, but I did pick it up looking at it closely. So here I zoomed out just a little bit just to illustrate. So I'm still on the macro lens, but even though I zoomed out a little bit, you can faintly see that little scratch there. This is why I'm saying it's like to the naked eye, you can't really see it or notice it that much. This is zoomed out on the macro lens. You can kind of see it. You have to zoom in pretty close to see it really well. Now I've moved the hour hand a little bit because I want to show you another issue like that I have. And this is just probably some impatience or just a lack of caution when the watch was assembled. But notice next to the hands at 12 o'clock, there are a couple little scratches there, or just imperfections on the dial. And don't know if that was, tool whenever they're putting the hands on or being assembled. Not sure. Let me zoom in a little bit and give you an even better look at that. But there's a couple little marks there you can see. 12 o'clock. Those are a little bit more noticeable with the eye, but again, from a distance, not too crazy. And you can see, again, there's another one of those examples of a speck or particle or something, or maybe it's a splash of paint, a little white spot right there. So up close, it's certainly got some areas for improvement in terms of really attention to finer detail. Again, for a Kickstarter watch at the price point, but I know that there's a lot of people out there waiting for the next Hamtun, and hopefully, some of these issues in printing and detail will be improved in future watches. And I want to say this again, I really do like this watch. So just pointing out the obvious pros and cons sort of in an objective manner. I like this watch, I'm going to keep it, but I think it's important to also point out room for improvement, or things that at least are noticeable about the watch in terms of the review. So the date and the day, again, sort of a beautiful combination at 12 and 6. I love the full day. Okay, so that is our up-close look at the Hamtun Nanok.
So what are the big takeaways from this look at the Hamtun Nanok? Well, I really like the watch. That's the first thing. It's extremely comfortable to wear. It's got a great, unique look about it. I love the full day. It's got a good movement in it. It's got excellent lume. Again, the bracelet is a little bit bulky at the clasp, but it's really comfortable and it's nice to look at. So I'm going to keep the watch. I like it. And I would recommend trying a Hamtun watch at some point, whether that's a future Kickstarter, doing pre-order for one that isn't released yet, finding one on eBay, whatever the case might be. The owner of the company, Ross, he's pretty active on Instagram and Facebook watch groups and things like that. Seems like a genuinely nice guy. He's working hard at what he does with his business. So I like supporting those sorts of companies. And this is no different, even though it's, of course, got areas for improvement, but it's certainly a good watch, good brand, and I would recommend it. It really is a good-looking watch. So thanks, Ross, overall for another successful Kickstarter, and congratulations on that. And look forward to see what you've got ahead. This has been another watch review on Watch Complications. Thanks to all my subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Ring the bell if you want updates. Check out my website, watchcomplications.com. I shall see you later.